Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to the first and hopefully only virtual NCMA mid-year meeting. Now, as the slide indicates, this is the SRW and Hardscape's Market Segment Committee meeting. My name is Wayne Villaluna, and I am the chairman for this committee. I would like to thank everyone who has taken the time out of their busy schedule to join us, and know that this session will last about 1 hour. Now, to get us started, we have a word from one of our sponsors, TopWorks SR Schindler. Okay, well, thank you, TopWorks, and welcome back. Now, we are using several different platforms throughout the mid-year event in order to provide the best technology for each unique session. In this session, we will be using the Adobe Connect platform. All attendee lines will be muted upon entry. Now, attendees may participate in the session by using the chat box. Now, should you need any help during the session, please do not hesitate to call the NCMA staff at the number on your screen. Randy is waiting. Now, as you can see by this slide, we are being recorded. So although for some of you that may be a concern, but know that you are consenting to be recorded. Now, please note the NCMA's antitrust policy, which can be found on the NCMA mid-year event website. All participants are expected to exhibit professional behavior in compliance with this policy, as well as the NCMA's anti-harassment policy. So we know who you are, and we will be watching. Now, as noted in the slide, please refrain or disengage from any inappropriate discussions and report any concerns directly to an NCMA staff person. Now, something critically important to the continued success of our meetings are our sponsors. We would like to take a moment to recognize and thank our mid-year sponsors, as you see on the slide. So, sponsors, thank you so much for your participation and sponsorship. We couldn't do it without you. Now, this is an overview of the meeting today. A review of the committee meeting activities. There are 3 active subcommittees that operate under the SRW and Hardscape committees. They are the Education Subcommittee, with Justin Meyer as the chair, the SRW Technical Subcommittee, with Glenn Harold as the chair, and Market Communication Subcommittee with Melissa Klein as the chair. They will report on what they've worked on since the last meeting. This review will also include the recommendations for actions that will be considered by the NCMA Board of Directors for this committee. Next is the SRW Standardization. What comes next? This presentation will review the efforts through the Masonry Society on standardizing SRW design in an interactive format to identify critical needs. This will be led by Chad Julius and Jason Thompson. Hardscaping's is, this is a video presentation that will be on the Hardscaping's is effort to generate young people's interest in hardscape installation careers. This will be led by Nick Lang. So let's go to the review, and I'm going to jump right into it. So let me introduce to you the Education Subcommittee and Justin Meyer. Justin, you're on.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Wayne. Welcome to the Education Subcommittee review. As Wayne noted, we're just going to give a review of the activities. We have had several meetings since the last meetings with the committee. The first project that I'd like to report on is the Hardscaping is social media campaign. The workforce development, this is a workforce development initiative that's in collaboration with ICPI to increase awareness of the hardscape industry as a career for the 17 to 20-year-old group. The efforts are being done through social media for the young adults and their parents, and a new dedicated webpage for the career was launched this spring. The social media campaign is showing good engagement, and there are funds available to continue the work until June of next year. As Wayne noted, we will have a presentation on hardscaping is at the end of this session. The next project is our SRW Inspector Education Program. As many of you are aware, this is a task group that has been led by Glenn Harold. He's done a great job preparing the presentation and getting it near completion. Our initiative is nearly ready to launch. The program is a 2-hour education session for SRW inspectors. The SRW committee is finalizing the review and the release to the NCMA for launch on the online platform. We are also, per the request of the subcommittee, to prepare an ad hoc task group to investigate other avenues for delivery outside of the online education opportunity. The next project is our SRW Installer Certification Program. Due to COVID-19, all in-person classes were canceled during that were beginning in March of this year, and unlikely that there will be offerings at least through the end of the year. The basic installer course is available online. Due to the shifting dynamics given the pandemic, the subcommittee is recommending establishing a task group to explore revamping the program. This may include changing how the content is delivered. We're considering looking at smaller sections and how to gauge the competency of the individuals taking the course if we were to revamp it into smaller deliverable sections. We are discussing an online delivery options, and the task group has been formed to evaluate all possible options. And lastly, the Education Subcommittee has been working to prepare a program for landscape and vocational technical schools. The subcommittee has been very active with this in participation with the ICPI. This is working with the secondary and post-secondary schools that have landscape and hardscape programs. This is a good opportunity to increase the reach of the program as well as generate interest for hardscape installer career choices. We feel the subcommittee is ready to recommend approving the policies and procedures to offer the SRW installer education exam to these schools. With that, Wayne, that wraps up my presentation, and I will kick it back to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Justin. Now, if anyone has any questions for Justin or the Education Subcommittee, please go to the chat box and enter questions or comments, and if we have time remaining, we'll answer them. I'd like to introduce you now, the SRW Technical Subcommittee, and Glenn Harold.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me fine. I'm not going to make this too lengthy because technical can be obviously very interesting. But in the technical committee, we do have some of the leading authorities in retaining wall design working together to solve lingering issues on or answer outstanding questions related to segmental retaining wall manufacturing and design. So some of the examples of what we're working on, the Limit Equilibrium Task Group. So this is the first item. When designing more complex wall geometries, say tiered walls, or where there's a series of different soils over the height of the wall, we basically had to conservatively guess at what was happening to the grid within the wall. So this new method of analysis that the task group is working on is more flexible than what was previously used, but required years of modeling and testing to validate what we thought was actually happening. So the task group is just finishing off the chapter on limit equilibrium, which will be included in the next version of the NCMA, segmental retaining wall design software. Okay. So the next item is the actual software itself. And as they say here, development is in process. So the existing software was developed in 2009 and runs on what's now, I would think, antiquated Windows XP platform. So the proposed software allows for the analysis of proprietary products as well. So there was some discussion at the committee level if and how that would work. So if you wish to find out more on getting your specific wall products included, please reach out to Gabriella. Staff are also looking for volunteers to do the beta testing of the software. So again, if you're interested, please reach out to Gabriella to participate. The last item in here is this Srw standardization. As mentioned, we are going to get into this in more depth in a few minutes, but as a quick just overview of what's going on, although NCMA is recognized as a credible resource for wall design information, there is nothing in place that says thou shalt design your retaining wall this way. We basically have no teeth. So after looking at several different avenues, we ultimately decided to pursue the development of a consensus-based segmental retaining wall design and construction standard through the Masonry Society, who in turn has a lot of experience in developing supplementary documents to the building code. A request for volunteers went out at the start of the year, through which we received a number of producer, designer, and corresponding members to the committee. The first committee meeting was held in June. Jason and Chad will be looking for your feedback later on in this forum on the committee's goals and objectives. Next slide. There's freeze-thaw testing that was being done through FHWA. And for those that aren't familiar with that acronym, FHWA is the Federal Highway Administration. So we retained them to do a series of tests for freeze-thaw. The first phase of the testing focused on comparing testing of full-size units to coupons, being cut pieces. We are waiting for the report from FHWA. The second phase of testing involves evaluating the impact of degree of saturation on freeze-thaw performance. The results will be used to make adjustments to ASTM C1262, which is testing of freeze-thaw durability of segmental retaining wall units. So if you have any further questions on this testing, I know Monica at NCMA is the contact. So hopefully that gives you a quick overview without getting too in-depth on the technical side.
Okay, well, thank you, Glenn. If anyone has any questions for Glenn or the Srw Technical Subcommittee, please go to the chat box and enter questions or comments, and we'll see if we can answer them at the end of this segment. I'd like to introduce to you now the Srw Market Communication Subcommittee and Melissa Klein.
Okay, great. Thank you, Wayne. Our subcommittee is currently working on several different projects, and the first one is the cost versus value study. That is a Hardscape project in collaboration with ICPI to create a Hardscape patio for the yearly cost versus value issue of the magazine remodeling. The project is intended to show the value of investing in Hardscape patio. Due to the pandemic, though, this has been delayed and is expected to be a primary initiative in 2021. The next project is Best Practices Guide, and that the subcommittee has decided to continue an electronic advertising of the Best Practices Guide through the end of the year to engineers on the American Society of Civil Engineers, ASCE, and to building officials on the American Public Works Association and the National Associations of County Engineers. Our next projects that we're working on, ACB manual, go back one, ACB manual promotion through advertising. The subcommittee has decided an electronic advertising of that as well for the manual through the end of the year to building officials on the American Public Association, Works Association, and the National Association of County Engineers. newsletters. Then the final one we have is the SRW Design Manual and SRW Wall Software. Those are two resources that are still in development and are expected to be a main promotional activity for 2021. So that pretty much concludes my report, and I'll turn it back to Wayne.
Okay, well, thank you, Melissa. Now, again, if anyone has any questions for Melissa or the Communications Subcommittee, please go to the chat box and enter questions and comments. So now we are actually moving ahead pretty good. I don't see any particular questions. Gabriella, do we have any questions that we'd like to address? I'm going to take that for a no. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Wayne. There was a small question of what was an ACB. Sorry, it was our fault. It's an articulating concrete block. I should have spelled that out. It's used for erosion control, and some of our members produce that product. It's made in the same block machine.
Okay, well, we're moving ahead fairly quickly. So if there are no other questions, Gabriella, then we will go ahead right to the next one for SRW standardization. Now, let me give a quick intro to the speaker so we know who we've got going. First off, we have Chad Julius, and he is the VP at Allen Block Corporation. He is an excellent speaker, educator, engineer, and has been dedicated to the Allen Block training program for over 18 years. Chad is a licensed professional engineer with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering and a Master of Science in Environmental Engineering. Throughout the years, he has worked with contractors, engineers, architects, and building officials to educate them on the proper SRW design approaches to ensure that every project is a success. He is leading this standardization effort. Now, Jason Thompson will also be involved in this presentation. He is the VP of Engineering and has been part of the NCMA since 1997. That's 23 years if you don't want to do the math. So, gentlemen, it's all yours.
So I think
Thanks,
we got
Wayne.
some instructions to
Appreciate
stretch things out a little bit, Chad.
Yeah, I got that message as well, that we got plenty of time to do our stand-up comedy act or something. I'm not sure.
Absolutely.
Now, I appreciate the introduction, Wayne. I wasn't sure, didn't know we were reading bios as part of this, but I thought Glenn did a nice job outlining what the SRW standardization commitment is. It started as in the technical committee as a task group, and then we look for the vehicle to get a standard written up, and that's where the Masonry Society really came into play. We've only had one meeting, and really that was to kind of almost a virtual get to know you of our standing committee right now. We've got a balanced approach. We've got 6 kind of producing members, whether that's a licensor or a producer, and then we even have 6 designers or users, more of the engineering side. And then we also have some corresponding members, obviously industry professionals and stuff like that. So really we're at ground zero. Our first ballot started in July and it just closed. And on that first ballot was really just trying to define what our mission statement is and what our scope of work is. And that is still has yet to be defined. Our next meeting will be towards the end of August. So look at it this way, for all of you guys in attendance, if standardization is new to you, you haven't missed much. We are at the ground floor, still trying to figure out where we are going to go with this, because there is some ideas and some perceptions out there. And that's really what we wanted to go through today, is kind of take you through some polling questions to kind of get a feel of where people are going on this, and then we'll obviously bring it back to the committee as we move through this. But as those of you guys know, this is not going to be a seamless process. This is not going to be quick by any means, but it is something that we will be diligently working towards, and we'll be reporting on it throughout the next couple meetings through the NCMA. Jason, anything you want to elaborate on?
No, I think that was perfect. Yeah, nothing here is going to be binding. We're just looking for your all's feedback, because it's going to be important as we move forward and start driving some of these stakes in the ground.
Exactly, exactly. So
I guess what we'll do, Bailey, if you don't mind maybe launching the poll, and we'll just kind of step through these questions. We'll give people time to walk through these. And, you know, I don't know if I need to read each one of these to you. I guess I'll read the poll question, and then you guys can decide on your appropriate response. But obviously, collectively, industry benefit, do you think having a code reference for design and construction will be beneficial for SRW? So we'll let this stay open for a little bit. We've got some pretty good attendance here at this committee meeting, which is great. So it'd be a nice way to kind of go through this.
So Chad, from your perspective, what's the primary pro with going forward with a code reference design standard?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, Jason, you and I have talked about this. I think this has got to be, I don't want to tip my hand here a little bit. We got some poll questions coming up, but it does provide some guidance. But to me, it's got to be more than just design and try to give the industry a little focus. But, you know, we've been very successful as an industry. If you look at hundreds of thousands of millions of square feet in the ground, this is a way to just kind of take maybe that next step as long as we are stepping in that right direction. So it looks like the poll, these are kind of wrapping up. So Bailey, let's go ahead. I haven't seen these move in a little bit, so let's go ahead and close this one. And then my understanding is that the results get popped up too as well. And Bailey, correct me if I'm wrong. We're still looking at the opening slide for us. There we go. Perfect. So the vast majority of you guys, almost 67%, said yes, that it would help. We got some that said no, and then a lot of it, the other vast majority is maybe, depending on the final content. I would say I would probably fit that as well, where it's got to be done right. So I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and launch the second poll question. All right, so this one, it talks about the SRW industry itself. So should these new standards only apply to dry cast SRW systems, which is segmental retaining walls, or should they be more complete, big block, even all of retaining walls in general, should they be included in this new standard? So again, we've got a few, these are all popping in.
So this is kind of like engineering aerobics. We got to get a little bit of activity out of these guys, right?
Yeah. This is so we make sure they just haven't launched it and you went to go grab a sandwich on the West Coast. So. All right. We still have a couple people logging in and providing some feedback, which is great. All right, good. So let's go ahead and we'll close this one out. And I would say everybody was pretty much in the same agreement that we had as a committee, that it had to be all-encompassing. But go ahead and display these results, Bailey, if you don't mind. And I appreciate all the work you do behind the scenes there. So.
Yeah, I know. So the advantage I do see here is, even though it is in bringing the competing systems into the fold, if you would, but it does set a level playing field for everyone, right?
Right. Yeah, the last thing we want to do as a committee is kind of create barriers of entry for our SRW industry. If all of a sudden we create, whether it's a methodology, design methodology, or mandatory language for a methodology and even construction, but nobody else has to play to those same rules, I hate to admit it, we've seen that in other marketplaces internationally where that's happened, and it's really kind of basically stymied growth. In fact, the industry has gone, our market has gone in other directions. So I know there's a lot of concern on the task group, the parties that are even in the committee that we have, to make sure we're smart about this and we're not creating that additional hurdle that has to be followed only by an SRW product. So no, I appreciate that. That is primary one of my major concerns as well. All right, so we've got a few more poll questions, which is exciting for us, but maybe not so much for you guys. Poll question number 3. If these standards are referenced by the building codes, should they be limited to the commercial applications only? You can see this, we're trying to get a feeling from you guys, whether it's commercial, residential, all the above, or you don't have a deciding factor on that. So again, we'll let this roll out here a little bit. Interesting. It's kind of fun. I mean, Jason and I get to watch these results kind of go back and forth a little bit. So if we got that funny look on our face, that's because we're reading numbers that I wouldn't say surprise us, but it is kind of nice to get that feedback right away. Okay,
So this is interesting. We're kind of split.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this one I was wondering where it would go. I actually thought, all right, so let's go ahead and close this one out so then everybody else can see what we're looking at. And I actually kind of expected to see more of the depends, but it's pretty strong.
I kind of did too. I mean, I think we've all seen those projects that technically may be residential, but I mean, they are complex and
yeah,
really kind of pretty challenging, demanding.
And Bailey, I think we're still waiting for it to allow people to view, correct?
The results should be visible now.
Okay, I can't tell because it pops up on the same side of my screen. So yeah, sorry about that. So we've got the residential at 44, almost 45%, and then it depends at 48%. I actually thought it'd be a little bit more neutral, kind of everybody just kind of giving the wishy-washy answer of depends, but I actually like the fact that most people think whatever is set for retaining walls, since we've already kind of taken the straw poll that it's got to be more all-encompassing, that it should be not just commercial, but as Jason mentioned, that residential can be relatively complex, and let's face it, that's the larger market out there too for how we see segmented retaining walls being used. So appreciate that. Great feedback there. Okay, let's go to poll question number 4. And I know, Nick, you were telling us we can lengthen the time, but I don't know how much slower we can go on some of this stuff without truly having people go to grab a sandwich. But question number 4, should these standards require the compliance with ASTM C1372, which is the roadmap for the segmented retaining wall specification? It talks about freeze-thaw durability, compressive strength, dimensional tolerances. So that is the standard that is referenced throughout our industry, but when it talks about all projects within the scope of that standard. And so we'll let this play out a little bit. I feel like dead air is bad, like a radio host here a little bit. But like I said, I keep watching numbers, so I've got real time moving. All right, so just jump there a little bit. Can't tell if everybody has voted, so let's just go ahead and close it now, because it does look like there has not been anything. So when you look at this, as we know, most of you guys are very familiar with the ASTM C1372 standard. To me, it's the minimum performance requirements, and a lot of you guys voted in affirmative of that should be the minimum requirements as stated in the standard. But a number of you, 40%, also said that it was a good starting point, and that could be the minimum standards, but it could be more stringent, which is also supported by best practices. Those of you guys that are familiar with that industry push, to me, it's one of our biggest industry pushes that we have to try to grow the industry that we have for SRW utilization, bring the value to the design community. We know in there we outline what the requirements are and really some guidelines. So not a bad idea there. So 60-40. Jason, anything that pops out at you at this one?
Well, so what's kind of really popping out for me for all of them is the fact that there's pretty established opinions. There's always that opt-out of no preference or undecided, and the people I think have opinions on these. Not always the right one, but
Well, everybody's entitled to their opinion,
That's right.
whether we agree with it or not, especially in today's society. Great, thanks Bailey, appreciate that. Let's go ahead and launch poll question number 5. We've got a few more here, guys, so bear with us. This is all good information for us. Like I said, as we start looking for that, taking these next steps along this. So question number 5, similar to the construction of the buildings, should these standards be established as minimum for site inspections and quality assurance criteria for the SRW projects too? So this one, are we looking at just design and methodology, or should we bring in more of those standards for inspection and quality assurance? So I'm really curious to see on you guys. We had some really good discussion on this internally as well, trying to decide which way is the best way to go. Yeah, I don't know. Here we've got the poll questions, and we've got, you know, no preference, no vote, that kind of stuff. Okay, a few votes still coming in. Interesting. I like it. I'm wondering if some of you guys go in and go ahead and change your vote after you read all your possible answers. Yeah, so I had a little feedback there. One question was about, do the inspection requirements to all retaining walls solution. So requirements to all retaining walls as part of the solution. So I think this one is done. Let's go ahead and close this, and we'll start talking about some of the results here. But yeah, I think that is a good point that we look at, you know, are these construction standards and quality assurance, does that apply to all projects, not just SRW projects? And that's part of where we're going with this standard. Obviously, we had that poll question before that we all agree that it should be mostly all-encompassing. So here, this was interesting. Obviously, we got the vast majority of you guys looking at that, yes, it should be part of the scope of this standard, but almost 36% said it's a sliding scale, right? It talks about inspection as a project should be, based on the complexity of the project, where does that go? And some of that is true when you look at, you know, small little residential jobs. You know, do you need that special inspection requirement as opposed to, you know, your higher commercial or even high-end residential as well? So this one's a little bit, I actually expected to see a little bit more, again, looking at the poll questions in advance, a few more people would see that sliding scale. Jason, any comment on that?
No, but again, kind of surprising that no one said no.
Yeah, no, never. I thought maybe we'd get a few votes in there for no, never. But okay, we got 2 more questions, and the next poll question is kind of one that we kind of went around with here a little bit, but thought we'd get a little feedback, and I'll go ahead and read this to you, but you guys can read it yourself. It should the requirements of these standards allow for the more engineering judgment, which allows the design flexibility to account for site condition, or establish light guard rails to ensure consistently satisfactory reports? So there's 2 thoughts of process. Do we keep it pretty open, let that engineering judgment, or do we lock it down and provide that roadmap to really kind of control what the design standards are over there? And so this is something that I'm curious to get your guys' feedback in as we move through some of this stuff. Because let's face it, we know industries will evolve. We know design standards evolve. We even look at the NCMA manual over the years now, where we've got the inclusion of limit equilibrium, which wasn't really a possibility before. So let's go ahead. I think these are still kind of jumping a little bit. Okay. We still got some, maybe people are thinking about it, or maybe I misread the question and they had to read it again for themselves to make sure they were answering it right. But.
Well, this one is kind of a philosophical question in and of itself, right? Because I think we all can look at different scales of engineering judgment and different guardrails that we put in place, but.
Yeah. Okay, I haven't seen the numbers jump around here a little bit, so Bailey, let's go ahead and close this one and let's have this discussion. I do actually, selfishly, like I said, we're all entitled to our opinions. I do like the fact that tighter the better didn't receive any votes. I do think we need to allow for some flexibility in there. So obviously you can see the vast majority has said it needs to be a balanced approach. And now it's up to us moving forward what that means, how we do it. But I did like that almost 11% of you guys said the advantages of SRW systems, the ability to adapt to the changes. And I would say that is a huge thing. You talk to the design professionals out there that are familiar with our industry. They like that they can provide multiple different solutions, whether it's a stabilized backfill, tie-back analysis, obviously the use of conventional geogrid and that reinforced gravity wall is something that we do over and over again, but who knows what the next challenges might be or that innovation might be. So yeah, again, very little on the no preference undecided or no vote. So that was good. Okay, we'll go ahead and launch the last poll question that we have. Okay, this last one, again, kind of a little bit more. Should the standards align more with the NCMA SRW design manual, which is that minimum requirement, or the NCMA best practices guide, which is a little bit more stringent? So what do you think here? So we're getting the votes in. So we've got the thought process out there where we look at best practices as kind of the next level, providing more guidance overall, not just the design methodology, but it gets into the compaction or the construction of these. But we do have, and this is something we've talked about in our committee, is, okay, we have a design manual through the NCMA, and that is kind of used in our industry as kind of that non-mandatory language. An engineer is just getting started with designs, they're looking at the NCMA as kind of that de facto standard. So we already kind of have that. We're looking at some feedback back and forth going, okay, how do we take that and take it to the next level, make it maybe a little bit more mandatory, like a code compliance. And so this one is interesting as far as some of the results. Okay, we still have a couple votes coming in, jumping around just a little bit. All right. We'll give it just a couple more minutes. This one keeps bouncing around.
Oh, I think they're just messing with you now, Chad.
I do. I think they're just, we're going to wait to see how long it stays on camera. So, all right, this is I think it's about done. So let's go ahead and close this one out. Thanks, Bailey. So I guess secretly,
so this is interesting to me.
Yeah.
I mean, not only
so if we
split,
yeah,
but when you look at something that's going to be referenced in the building codes, we always kind of define those as the minimum requirements, right? So wherever we set that bar, if it's something that's going to be adopted by the building codes, it's still that minimum criteria wherever that bar happens to kind of sit. So this one is interesting.
It's interesting. We could look at the best practices as kind of a governing of all, and it does bring in a little bit more of the construction inspection, a little bit more kind of an explanation of things. But it's pretty split, 38 to 57. And we did get, I think just because we were telling people that we were surprised we weren't getting the wishy-washy answers, I think we got a couple here this time at 3.85. So, and I think that was part of the messing with me. But no, this is all really good feedback. We do appreciate you guys taking a little bit of time today, first attending the session, but then giving us your opinion. And as I mentioned before the polling questions even started, we know this is kind of a long process. Creating standards is not something that is done overnight. And so we do have a balanced committee, and I look forward to the challenge. But we know we've got some hills to climb, and it starts with that scope of work and how we want to do this. So this is all very positive information that we get to chew on in our next meeting.
Thanks, Chad. We'll turn it back over to you, Wayne.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, so Chad and Jason, before you guys leave, we did have one question come in on the chat box, and it had to do with inspection requirements. And I believe the question is asking is, would or should the inspection requirements apply to all retaining wall solutions, or would they likely be specific to, say, just SRWs?
Yeah, it's a fair enough clarification. I know the poll question really kind of limited it to the SRW as it was written there, but you kind of inferred to one of that first poll questions where everybody said that this needs to be more encompassing. So in my opinion, and again, it's just my opinion, I'm chewing on this with your guys' feedback that now if we're going to do this standard and it's all encompassing, then the inspection and quality control, quality assurance measures would be kind of floated across the entire retaining wall as that solution.
Yeah, I'd agree. If the design criterion covered all retaining wall systems, then I think the inspection criteria would necessarily too.
Yep. I agree.
All righty. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
All right, Wayne, it's all yours. Thanks, buddy.
Okay. Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Jason. Now, again, if you have any additional questions, go ahead and throw that on there. Now, what's interesting about this virtual versus live definitely has more questions. So we did allot time for questions, so please don't be shy. So go ahead and throw questions in that chat box. Now, next, we're going to hear from Nick Lang from the NCMA, obviously, and he'll be presenting this video and will be available for questions after the video. Now, Nick is the VP of Business Development and has been with the NCMA since 2006, or 14 years again, if you don't want to do the math. So if we can go ahead and show the video, that would be great.
My name's Garrett DeCastro, and I'm the owner of Premier Landscape. I got started with my career actually senior year in high school. My mother was obviously very encouraging for me to go to college at the time, not pushing me necessarily, but wanting me to at least try. I attended about 2 or 3 days worth of classes. Honestly, I just didn't enjoy it. I felt like I was cooped up in a classroom. I think there was a mantra at one point, and there still is a little bit, that's the next step from high school. It's college, college, college. And it just isn't anymore. Within my company alone, I mean, I have very skilled foremen, I have very skilled operators, skilled installers. You know, all these individuals have still mastered their trade. Just follow your heart.
I'm Sam Gimbel, and I'm the owner and founder of Atlas Outdoor. I grew up in inner city Flint in a very, very humble home, and an abundant life of vacations and things like that was not something that was in our family. My dad would take and drop me off into kind of one of the wealthier neighborhoods in Flint, and I would just go house to house and I would cut grass, you know, for 10, 15 bucks when I was 12 to 14 years old. The Hardscape business, it gives us the flexibility to be able to take vacations as a family. the future that you can have in this business. It doesn't take a college education. It really is a skilled trade. It's things like that that just give me like reassurance every single day that I made the right choice to join the hardscape industry, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
I am Judy Crossan. I am Kyle's mom.
Steve Crossan, Kyle's dad.
Hi, I'm Laura DeCastro.
I'm Merchant DeCastro.
Kyle was a lot of fun as a child.
Every time I picked up a tool, he was there learning how to use it, what it was for.
Garrett was always outdoors. He always had to be outside. That was probably his biggest thing.
Raising him, with all our kids, we always pushed them to look toward what they were going to be. We always encouraged them to go to college. That would have been our first choice.
The fact that he could use his designing and creating things and come up with a product and be outside, I could see it.
Hardscapes give him the opportunity to create. And it's a lasting creation that he can drive by and say, yeah, we built that.
People like working with their hands. People like building things. People like doing something different every day. We need those people.
We will be proud of you, whatever you do, as long as you do it well and you earn an honest living. But the important thing to remember is find something you enjoy doing. If you get up and you enjoy going to work every day, that's 90% of the battle. We were just really excited that he found something that gave him that enjoyment.
Okay, well, the goal of that video was really to show kind of a lot of the different collateral that was developed during the Hardscaping is campaign that we have going on, which is a collaboration with the Interlocking Concrete Pavement Institute, as in the beginning of the video, to really engage young people and try to get them interested in hardscape careers, especially on the installation side. So as you can see from some of the metrics, it's been doing quite well. What was included in some of the market stuff, which is some national promotion that we've done on some posts and some things, and so that's helped to increase some of those reach reach numbers as well. So with that, just wanted to again show you a little bit of what was going on. The campaign is going to continue through the rest of this year and into next year, and continue to make progress. So encourage you guys to help us amplify the message and to try to continue to get people interested in hardscaping as a career. So with that, Wayne, I'll turn things back over to you.
Okay, well, thanks, Nick. Again, if we have any questions, please go ahead and do that. Gabriella, did we have any additional questions for Nick? Thinking, I didn't see, I thought I might have saw one, but I wasn't sure.
Yes, Wayne, there was one. It was mainly a comment. Since there is, this program is concentrated on people that have not joined or decided on a career. The comment was basically to not forget people that are already in college. Some of them may have not seen the possibilities, so he was suggesting maybe, not forget them and follow up with them too.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's something we can kind of take back into some of our advertising targeting for the future.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and jump to the next slide and wrap up. So we're just slightly ahead of schedule, so that's pretty good. If there are no additional questions, and I don't believe there are there, Gabriella? If not, then I'm just going to move to the thank yous. So again, first off, obviously, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to thank our speakers for sharing their activities and their insights with us. And then also, of course, thank the sponsors for supporting us. Now, there is a poll, so before you leave the session, if you could fill that out, because your feedback is very important to us. And I want to jump up to what's next. So what's following us here? We have two sessions at 3:15 Eastern, 12:15 Pacific. The first, it's on, obviously, as you can see, the manufactured stone. And then we have also production technology. But don't forget that we also have social events tonight. So one, we have the Golden Garlic Competition, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific, as well as barbershopping with Bob and Terry, and we're not talking haircutting. So that's at 8 p.m. Eastern and then 5 o'clock Pacific. So by all means, go ahead and see that. And I believe we are just a bit ahead. So Bailey, if we can go ahead and start the promotion. Oh, well, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Let me talk about tomorrow. So we'll also pick up again at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 Pacific, same time, same bat channel, and we will be examining the SRW market segment's future initiative. This was the current, tomorrow's the future. That'll include the strategic plan and the 2021 work plan. So basically what's in it and what isn't. Then the Hardscape Market Insights with Michael Becker of Industry Insights. Now he'll be giving us his thoughts on the impact of COVID and what lies ahead. And if you're familiar with the SRW survey, it's his company that does that as well. And then third and last will be open forum, and this will be an ability to participate in an open exchange among the members, to ask questions or make comments on anything that you kind of chewed on today or that we come across tomorrow. We're going to set aside somewhere about 12, 13 minutes to achieve that. So please come with your questions. And so at this point, we're about 4 minutes ahead, 5 minutes ahead. And I guess as we complete our first session for today, we're going to have a video from one of our wonderful sponsors, ACM Chemistry. So Bailey, if you can go ahead and play that, that would be wonderful.
Hi there, I'm Dean Jurek, and welcome to ACM Chemistry's Concrete 101. These are a series of short videos, about 15 minutes or so, that are designed to help you learn a little bit more about what goes on inside your plant.
So, what does go on in that plant with the silos? Let us walk you through some of the fundamentals of concrete technology. Topics like aggregates, mixed designs, cements, pozzolans, admixtures, and even efflorescence. We will get a bit technical, but don't panic. We'll have some famous experts to help us through.
I'm Dr. Emmett Brown. The Diamond Jim Rio here, your gambling man. Roger Raincloud, your neighborhood weatherman. Hi there, boys and girls. It's Mr. Dodgers here.
Okay, I can still see a number of people there. This concludes our session for today. So thank you very much, and we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. So again, thank you so much for joining us.